Hello, welcome to my channel and welcome to my YouTube live. Especially if you're new here, thank you so much for joining. I tend to do these lives probably about once a month, usually on the last Sunday of the month. So in today's live video, I am going to be talking about my debt story. Now, I decided that I wanted to talk about my debt story mainly because I feel like I've gained quite a few subscribers over the year. And the last time I spoke about my debt story was back in 2020, so it has been a while. So I thought, why not just share, talk about my life essentially. So hopefully you can hear me because I did end up getting a new mic, so I'm really hoping it does work. But I did actually do a few, like little screen grabs for you, just so you can, honestly, it's really to guide me and think about like what's actually happened over the past couple of years. But yeah, I'm excited to share my story. And if you do have any questions, please do let me know in the chat. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, I'm here to chat with you guys. So welcome. Now, what I'm going to do is hopefully I'm going to try and share my screen. So hopefully it can work. And I see a couple of people joining me as well. So hopefully say hello if you would like to say hello, especially if I haven't met you before. And yeah, feel free to ask me any questions, anything about my debt story, anything like that. Feel free to share it. So let's share this so you can see. Okay, let's do it this way. All right, so let's talk about my 16K debt story. So for many of you, if you don't know, especially if you've only been subscribed to my channel maybe over the past few months, you might not know that I ended up being in about £16,000 worth of debt, which is, to be honest, the way the currency is going is maybe around $18,000. It's probably even like $16,000 to be honest. But I used to be in quite a bit of debt. So I want to talk about how I actually got there, how I was able to pay it off, and what my finances are like since I have paid off my debt. And I basically just kind of want to talk about the journey. So, in terms of how I got into debt, there were two debts that I had. So I first of all had an overdraft. So I went to university, as many people usually do. We go to university, and I had a student overdraft essentially. And so because I had a student overdraft, I was like, well, when I start working after university, that's when I can pay off the overdraft. So in my mind, because the overdraft was interest free, I thought, may as well just milk it and just enjoy the money. And so I did. I ended up not only spending the money within university, I'm not going to lie, I went on a couple holidays as well, basically with money that I just didn't necessarily have, and just thought if I use my overdraft to help me fund it, it will be okay. So yeah, terrible decision that I made. That was the first one. So that overdraft was about 2,000. And then after the overdraft, so after uni, I did my master's and then I started working as well. After that, when I first got my actual like graduate job, like I had been working before I did my master's. This was after my master's. I had a full-on graduate job, and with that job, I actually had to move out. So some of you guys will know my story in terms of moving out, and I was living in a house of multiple occupations. So basically, you're sharing with other, not students, but you're sharing with other professionals. So you might know my story about that. So I was living there, and I would then drive to work. So it was probably about 10-minute drive to work. But where I was working, whenever I would go to the car park, because most people would drive to work because you just couldn't really take the public transport. But when you would drive to work, I would just see all of these nice cars. And I had a little bit of FOMO, to be honest. And I just felt like, the car that I had, it was a car since I had bought at university. I bought it in my second year, cost me about $1,000. It was like an old banger. Like some of you guys have probably even seen photos in some of my videos because I have showed it. It was a Peugeot. It was, yeah, it wasn't great. It was probably over 10 years old. So I'd be driving that to work and I would just feel really insecure because I had this car, whereas so many other people were driving, not even just Audis, but just even like, you know, better cars and or newer cars, should I say. And so I felt really bad. And I just thought, you know what? I'm this graduate person. I've just got my new job. I'm making this money now. I should be able to, buy another car. Like I need to buy another car. And so that's what I did. But obviously I didn't have cash to buy it. And actually I remember originally I did think about buying a car in cash, but I just didn't have the money. I didn't have the money. So I ended up having to take it out on finance with my bank. Um, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't have had a choice to do it as well, because literally the day after I went to pick up, no, the day before I went to pick up my car, the day before I went to pick up my new car, it was a Ford Fiesta. I was very happy. It was a black car. I was very excited. I don't have that car anymore, but that's another story for another day. But essentially, when I then picked up that car, the day before I picked up that car, I ended up being in a car accident. So someone actually crashed into my car, my little banger, my Peugeot. I used to call her Patricia. My husband now, he used to call her Susie. But my little Peugeot was finished. Like they said that it was pretty much written off. So the insurance, the person who crashed into my car, their insurance company basically paid for my car, which wasn't much. I think it was about 800 odd. It wasn't very much at all. But essentially, I had no car, so I would have basically had to buy another car, whether I liked it or not. Obviously, in my case, I had already bought the car, I just hadn't picked it up yet. So I think it was like a week later, I went to go and pick up my car and then took out my finance. And for that finance, trying to remember how much it was, but I think it was about 13 and a half. The car itself was like 11 and a half. So 11,000, around 11,000, just under 12,000. But the interest that I would have to pay because of the car itself was about 13,500. So that is how much basically total my car came to. And my interest, so my APR, from memory, I think it was about 11.9%. And I actually have a net worth statement in like the next slide where I talk about, the fact that my interest was 11.9%. So basically, I would be paying about 13 grand for my car, plus I then had my 2,000 overdraft. So I then 13 and a half. It was like it came to 16. It came to 16k. It may have been no 14k was the car. Sorry, not 13. 14k was the car. So plus the 2,000 overdraft, which meant that I basically had about 16,000 pounds worth of debt. So here I am thinking that life is okay. And then all of a sudden, whilst I was at work, and especially because I was living in I was living with other professionals, so I didn't really talk to them very much. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. Like after work, 4 or 5 o'clock, I'd be finished. I'd get home about either 4:15 if I was leaving at 4, or 5:15 if I was leaving at 5. And I had a lot of time. I didn't really, I didn't really have much to do. So I decided that I was just going to start learning about, how people build wealth. Like, how do people actually become rich? Because I was a bit confused, because in my work, I would see all of these kind of senior leaders here making a lot of money, but they would be working crazy hours, and some of them would never even see their kids. And I was always really confused. And I was like, is that how genuinely people like build wealth? Is that how wealthy people live their lives? It is not. So I decided to just, just start looking up. And so I, started watching YouTube videos, especially people from the UK. So I started watching people like, Mama Furfur, The Humble Penny. I watched a lot of US content as well. I then got the book. I got 2 books. I got Meaningful Money by Pete Matthews. He's UK based. But then I also got Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, who's obviously US based. And that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, honestly, it changed the game for me. If you have not read that book, and I'm pretty sure I have it in the description in my videos or even in this live, I honestly get that book, read it, because it literally changed how I view about money and understanding, the difference between assets and liabilities and all of that stuff. that is kind of what really changed the game for me. So I then decided, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my net worth statement. So I wanted to figure out, how financially healthy I was. And if you have watched some of my previous videos, you know that I'm always talking about, finding your net worth, thinking about how financially healthy you are. So I decided to do my net worth. And some of you may, if you've watched my videos for a while, you may remember this net worth. So this was back in October 2018. So I wrote down all my assets, and assets are just literally things that put money in your pocket, or they have some form of economic value. So things like, savings, if you've got any investments, anything like that, that can be considered an asset. So I wrote that down and I had zero. I literally had I had no savings, guys, no savings whatsoever. So that was a shock to me because I realized, oh, I actually don't have any savings at all. Like I've just not been able to save money. And then I wrote down my liabilities, which then gives you the full amount. So my bank overdraft was 2,000, as I mentioned, and my car loan, which as I mentioned was 11.6 APR, was 14,272. It's even more than I remember. Me, that was thinking it was 13 grand. It wasn't. It was 14,000. So then that total came to 16,272. So literally my net worth was minus. And that doesn't even include things like student loans. Although that is like questionable in terms of whether you would include it. Sometimes I will include it in my net worth, sometimes I won't, just because in the UK specifically, how we pay for student loans is very different to the US, for example. But in terms of, like my high interest debt, my net worth was negative. Like it was minus 16,272. So when I saw that number, that was honestly, it was the kick up the backside I needed, because I had no idea how much I was in debt, and I had no idea how sort of, I don't want to say financially unhealthy I was, but just in terms of the position that I put myself in. And to be honest, I will say that actually this was probably a good thing for me, because had I not done this, I would not have made any changes. I would have just been living life like it was normal. I would have still been living paycheck to paycheck, because again, many of you may not know that I was always living paycheck to paycheck, hence why I had no savings or investments. So for those of you who have maybe just come to my channel thinking that, oh, I've just got my money sorted, believe this is where I started. Like I did not start knowing how to save and invest just like that. This is where I started. So I really wanted to bring back, where essentially where I came from. But I also wanted to provide inspiration for you guys to know that, if you are in a similar situation, or if you feel like you're struggling when it comes to your finances, just really understand that things can change. I mean, if it can change for me, from someone living paycheck to paycheck in debt, to being able to save and invest a high proportion of her income, it can definitely happen to you. So I want to talk about some of the things that I did really just to pay off my debt. So what did I do to get out of debt? So one of the first things I did is, obviously I mentioned I did a net worth statement. And once I did a net worth statement, that's what helps me figure out like what I needed to do. So for example, in my case, I realized that I needed to reduce my liabilities, and then what I needed to do was also increase my assets, because I had none. I had no assets whatsoever. So what I then did is, of course, I started things like budgeting. And obviously, I feel like most of you already know how I feel about budgeting. It is something that I absolutely love doing. I think it is the one of the core fundamental things you can do. I think sometimes we feel like budgeting is something that's supposed to restrict us, and it's just not a great thing. But for me, budgeting really helped me to understand exactly where my money was going, because I had no idea, right? The first couple of times I did a budget, I'd be thinking that I'll probably spend like, I don't know, maybe I thought I'd spend like 15 a week on food, when in reality I'd be spending about 30. So what it did is it helped me to understand exactly what my spending was like and where my leaks were. That's when I started to find out that I would do impulse purchases on things like clothes. So for example, what used to happen is that I would just buy clothes because they were on sale. Literally just because they were on sale, I would buy clothes. I would have no reason to buy them. It's not like I was planning to use them for something. Just because they were on sale, like I would get emails telling me, oh yeah, this place is 70% off. And then I would just go there and honestly just spend hours just looking for clothes because they were on sale, and I wouldn't wear half of them. So that's where I now started to figure out where my leaks were and what I needed to change. So I think when, if you're someone that maybe struggles with budgeting, or you just don't like the concept, I would start thinking differently about it. Start thinking that that budget is literally just to guide you and help you figure out where your money is going, because that's what it did for me. It helped me to figure out, okay, this is how much I'm spending, maybe I need to tweak this, maybe I need to adapt. And that's exactly what I did. So with my budget, what I would be doing is I would obviously pay my essential bills, pay my debt. So my overdraft was interest free. So I didn't need to necessarily, pay like a minimum payment. But for my car, I think I was paying like 282 a month, which like now I think about it, I'm like, that is a payment that I was making. That yeah, I don't think I would do something like that, yeah, anytime soon. But I was paying like 282 a month. So then what I then questioned was, okay, well, how much do I want to start overpaying on the debt? And it's very, very similar to things like saving money, because what I needed to learn was how to save, because I had always struggled to save money. The one time I was okay, there's two times I was able to save money. One was for my car when I bought it at university, and the second was when I bought a laptop at university. But it wasn't really saving, because all I did was just work for a few weeks and then use that money to purchase it. But that was the closest I'd been to saving. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try and build like a mini emergency fund before I start attacking the debt, because that's what these financial experts were saying. You want to build like some cash so that you don't get into even more debt in case an emergency comes up. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try and save up £500, maybe about $700, just to get myself started. Guys, when I tell you, it was one of the hardest things I have literally, just saving 500. And it's mad now because I can save 500 like that. But before that, it took me months. And I have a video, I think I did it last year or the year before, where I basically said it took me 6 months just to save 1,000. Just to even save that 500, it took me months, because I was trying to then say, okay, maybe I can save like, I don't know, I think it was like 168 a week that I would try and save. But there'd be times where I would dip into my savings because there would be things that I had to pay for. I even had my graduation that I hadn't planned for, so I had to pay for that. And obviously you've got to pay for like photos, and graduations are expensive already. So just small things like that kept coming up and I hadn't planned for them. And so I kept dipping into my savings. So every time I thought I was taking one step forwards, it felt like I was taking 2 steps back. So I know the struggle when it comes to saving, because I've not always been able to save like this. Now, the reason why I'm able to save like this is because I've learned how to plan for those expenses that come up. That is why I'm able to save very quickly, is literally just because I know the expenses that are coming up and I know how to plan for them. But I've got videos talking about that a lot. If you just research, like look up sinking funds, for example, my videos on sinking funds, that's how I've been able to do it. But that's what I started doing. So I decided to learn how to save. And then what I would do is then I would overpay on my debt. So I had to pick which debt I wanted to pay off. And that's also something that I would say is, especially if you are in debt, really be clear on the strategy that you're using. There are so many different strategies. There's something called the snowball method, where you just list your debts smallest to highest and you just pay the smallest one and then you keep going. Avalanche, you pay it by the interest rate. I chose to pay it by the interest rate mainly because my overdraft was interest free. And so I knew that I had a bit of time. And so I decided to put more of my money into my car loan. That's what I decided to start on. But then throughout the progress, like throughout the journey, I tried to switch it up and started paying for my overdraft. I wouldn't do that because honestly, I just messed it up and then ended up going back to the car loan. So I would pick one debt first if you're trying to pay off debt. But that's essentially what I did. So I was saving money and then I was overpaying on my debt. So I would go online, go on my bank and say, yep, I want to overpay by this amount. And then this is why you have to be careful, because the bank was so cheeky. Luckily for me, this is when I really started to gain financial education, because the bank would then be telling me, oh, so because you've overpaid on your debt, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the term the same. So in terms of how long it was going to take me to pay off the debt, I think it was supposed to be 3 years, 3 or 4 years. They were basically saying, oh, we're going to keep the term the same. So we're going to keep the 3 years the same. We're just going to lower your monthly payments. So what they were saying is that they still want me to be paying all of that interest. And I'm like, I'm not stupid. So what I said was, okay, fine. If that's how you're going to be, cool. So what I did is, and I was luckily I was able to start really being disciplined. What I did is, so because what I used to do is just overpay month by month. That's what I would do. I would save the money, then go and overpay it. But because every time they just kept trying to lower my car payments, what I did is I said, okay, well, I'm now going to save a stash, like a huge amount, and then literally just pay it off and do that a few times. Like I think I did that maybe 4 or 5 times. Honestly, I don't remember. It seems like so long ago. But that's what I did. And that is what helped me to also save and have that discipline to know that there is I have like a pot of savings that is literally used to pay off my car loan. So what I would do is save and save and save and save. So let's say I saved like 2 grand, and then I would just pay it towards the car loan. And then it got to the point where I essentially paid it off and the bank couldn't do anything. But it meant that I paid less in interest as well because I was able to pay it off so quickly. So that was then the car loan. And then because of one of the other things that I did, actually, obviously there were things that, I did in terms of not necessarily completely cutting back, but what I would do is I would just figure out, okay, well, what matters to me and what doesn't? Like, what do I value and what don't I value? So in my case, I wasn't that fussed about going out to eat all the time. Like I just wasn't too fussed. Like, I don't know, I think it's just because I like home food, but I didn't really care about stuff like that. But obviously, I still wanted to see my friends. I still wanted to see family. So what I would say is, oh, can we like meet at someone's house, or can we, go out somewhere? But I'm not going to order like a 3 course meal because I just don't care about that. I might just order something smaller. Now the question is when your friends say, oh, should we split the bill at the end? When you've got a starter and maybe a dessert, and they've got a 4 course meal with a pint of drink or something. That's another discussion. But that's essentially what I did. And so I was able to really clean up my expenses. If there were things that like I didn't really, or if there were like subscriptions that I wasn't really using, then I would just get rid of them because I wasn't using it. And I just learned how to save in a way where it didn't feel like I was completely cutting back. Like I just saved, or like small things like buying yearly insurance instead of monthly, because I knew that if I did monthly, they'd be adding interest. And so I'd end up paying more money. So just small things like that, where I then was able to plan ahead and essentially then pay for my yearly car insurance. So things like that. Another thing I did, which was a bit drastic, I'm not going to lie, but I decided because I was already living in a house of multiple occupation. And so because I was already living with housemates, and honestly, I didn't really get along with my housemates that well. Well, 1 or 2 of them. So because of that, I was like, well, do you know what? I may as well just become a lodger, since I'm hardly like, and this was at the point where I was working from home as well, sometimes. And sometimes I'd be working from London, which is where my house was, like my family house, and also where my boyfriend at the time, he's now my husband, but where he was based as well. So I would actually spend a lot of time in London rather than my workplace. So because of that, I was really only up there probably about 3 days a week. So I was like, well, why am I paying that much just to be there for 3 days a week? Like I don't really do much. Like I literally go to work and then come back. So I was like, well, I may as well just like become a lodger. So I literally found like a family home where they were looking for someone, and I was paying 300 a month, rent and all inclusive bills, everything, 300 pounds a month. And then that's it. And I was there Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and then Thursday all the way to Monday morning, I would be in London. So, and obviously because I was in London and I was in my family house, I didn't really have to pay rent or anything like that. So that cut my costs drastically without having to, completely cut back on things that really matter to me, where I was sleeping, it really didn't matter because I wasn't there half the time anyway. So that accelerated it for me. And then obviously there are other things you can do, like you can, make more money, you can get a second job. But I think for me, because I was learning so much and I was trying to do quite well in my job so that I can get a pay increase, that was kind of my focus at that time. So I was able to do that. So then once I paid my car loan off, I was then able to use the money that I had with my car loan. So it was like 200 odd pounds for my payment. And then in terms of how much I was saving, I think I was at that point, I was then saving about, I want to say at least 500 a month or 700 a month. I think it was 500. So with that money, plus the car payment, I then put that towards my overdraft. And so I was able to then pay my overdraft off in a matter of months. I think it was less than 3 months. And so that's essentially what I did. And so I then ended up paying off my debt in about 18 months, which was great. So for me, I think one of the best things I did was essentially doing that net worth statement, but also tracking my net worth statement as I went. So I didn't just do the one net worth statement, your assets and liabilities. I didn't just do that. What I did is I would track it each month. So I would then see, okay, well, how much of the debt have I paid off? Like, what does that mean? And that gave me motivation because then I could actually see that my net worth was changing, especially when I got under, I think, under minus 10K. I could then see, oh, okay, like this is really, really going down. And honestly, it just pushes you to do it even more. So that's basically how I was able to pay off my debt. And then um, after that, so what are my finances like now? So in terms of after paying off my debt, I was then able to build up an emergency fund quite quickly. And this was then during the pandemic as well. So obviously everyone was working from home. I then decided to move back to London to my family house because, we were working from home. It didn't make sense for me to have like two places now. And so because we were then working from home, I was able to save a lot more money. Got to the point where I was saving like 70% of my income. Like I was definitely contributing, to my family home. So if that's something that you also do as well, if you're living with your parents, of course, like, if you can help contribute, then feel free to. But that's what I was doing. So I was contributing. I would like pay for like groceries, or I would pay for like the housing insurance as well because my name was on the mortgage as well. So I had to pay for something. But it did mean that I was able to keep a lot of that money. So I was saving about 70% each month. And so I then ended up building up my emergency fund. So I wanted to build up an emergency fund. I think I did 3 months or something, obviously, because I was at home, didn't have too many expenses, didn't have a car payment anymore. So my expenses were very, very low. And then I then started to work towards saving up for a wedding and then investing. So that's when I really started I really started to focus on the investing part because I wanted to now focus on growing my money, not just saving it. So I wanted to be able to save but to also invest. So I started investing in the stock market. So I've been doing that for a couple of years now since 2020. I was able to pay for my wedding in cash. So myself and my husband put money together, paid for our wedding. We didn't pay for the full one because our parents wanted quite a big wedding. So we told them, well, you better cough up the money to do that. But yeah, so we got the wedding out of the way and then started investing money. And that was from the pandemic. And essentially, it's kind of where we are now. We then got married, joined our finances together, and we have been both saving and investing. I think before we were at a point where we were saving and investing, I think I want to say about 45% of our income, but that wasn't including pension, because pension we had like another 9% that we were saving and investing. So when we brought our finances together, it was about 45% because obviously we then moved out, we were renting in London. London is not cheap, especially where we were living. We're paying like 1,100. Well, it was 1,050 before. But yeah, so we had obviously additional expenses, but we were still able to at least still save quite a high percentage. And it's literally mainly because my husband has also been naturally a saver. So he's not had a problem with saving money. it was me that really changed my behaviors, because obviously I was naturally a spender. I would just spend the money. I wasn't used to saving. But because of the way that I had then built my own savings, and I had built quite a good net worth. I think my net worth was about 10K before I got married, like positive 10K. So once I then built my net worth, I understood, okay, this is really how I can use my money. And then when we got together, we essentially did the same thing. My husband's not that big on budgeting. He doesn't mind it. He probably wouldn't do it himself. But yeah, he's happy with the budget, but he'll definitely like track our expenses. And he's naturally a saver anyway, so that's fine. And so essentially, that's how I was able to pay off my debt. That's how I was able to save for things like a wedding. It's how I was able to start like investing as well. So I started investing in the stock market. And that's something that I've been doing, yep, since 2020. And so now our main focus is just, again, saving and investing, and then working towards financial independence, which, if you don't know what financial independence is, it's basically where you essentially have assets or investments now paying for your expenses. So rather than me having to work, I am then able to have investments pay for my expenses, so that if anything else happens to my main source of income, like if I was in a job, or even if I like had a business or anything, and things went a bit pear-shaped, I would at least have my investments paying for my lifestyle. So I don't have to worry about that. And so that's why I always encourage everyone to think about financial independence, even if it's not from like the freedom aspect of, not having to work. That is also, something that's highly attractive. But for me, I think everyone should be working towards it, just mainly from a security perspective, because, as we've seen in 2020, honestly, anything can happen. You think that your job is secure. It is not all the time. So we then need to think about, how can we now start to really think about how we can become financially secure and take that control back, rather than relying on, say, other people. So that's essentially my debt journey, guys. I mean, I see 19 of you here. Please tell me, do you have any questions? Otherwise, we're gonna end up cutting this short, or where you're from, or honestly, it doesn't even have to doesn't have to do with my debt story. It could be to do with, I don't know, everything going on in the world. Like, I know there is a lot going on. I think part of the reason why I wanted to share this story is to also kind of give you encouragement as well, just to remember, although things may seem quite scary at the moment, and, obviously the country is a bit of a mess, and, those in power, I'm not a political type of person, but I will just say that some of these decisions I think are nonsense. So I think because there's a lot going on, we can feel very, very worried, and we're worried about our future, and we tend to think, what is happening in the now, and not necessarily think about our future as well, because there's so much going on. But I say this to say that, there are still some things that you can control. Like, even during the time that I was trying to pay off my debt, there were uncertain things like Brexit and just a whole load of other stuff going on. But I decided that I really still wanted to focus on my own finances, and I wanted to figure out how I can take control, regardless of, the external markets around us, regardless of what's going on. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm trying to say, is that yes, things are crazy at the moment, but we can still take control. And that's why I do, all these videos, to help you still be able to take control, to still be able to look at your budget, figure out what's going on. Then once you now start controlling your finances, you can then get to the point where you can now start to say, okay, well, if I make more money, this is where it's going to go. That's kind of where I want you guys to go, if that sort of makes sense. But in terms of, if you need any other support as well, I do offer one-on-one coaching. So if you do need any support, specifically women as well, I do really try to focus on women, because I know that we do have, I don't know, it seems like we always struggle when it comes to finances, whether it's investing, whether it's figuring out what we're trying to save for, having a purpose for our saving, even sticking to our budget to the point where we can save and invest our money, but also we can but also we can be able to spend the money as well. That is something that I'm really passionate about as well. So if you need further support, link is in the description, so you can book a call with me to find out more. But if there aren't any questions, I mean, I might go, guys. I thought there would be at least one question. I mean, please let me know. How are you feeling? Did you watch things like the latest budget? How are you feeling about the cost of living crisis? Are you doing anything to prepare it? Have you got any other thoughts? Please do let me know. Let me just check on YouTube as well, just to make sure. Oh my gosh, there are some. Do you know what? I am on StreamYard, right? And I saw no no comments, and I didn't realize that there were so many different comments. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. It's not showing my comments. Right? Okay, I see your comments. So let me go to it. Um, Hi, Bubble Bacon Bunny. Oh, looking forward to the live. Oh, that's great to know. Everyone joining, like the video. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, please, guys, please do like the video. Oh, there was another announcement as well before I forget. I am going back to 2 videos a week, partly because YouTube punished me for doing one video a week. So I decided that, I'm going to go back to 2 videos, but I'm going to do it in a way where it doesn't. The reason why I dropped down to 1 video is because it just felt like really long editing, but I've now found a way where it doesn't take too long to edit my video. So I'm going to go back to 2 videos a week. It will be sometime in October, probably mid-October, but you can look forward to 2 videos a week, and also plus my monthly live. So if you want to join us live, we can have fun. Hey, Integrated Purgatory, how's everything? Do you know what? Everything is good. Yeah, came to church today. I was actually on a panel with my church today, which was really fun. And we were talking about finances. So yeah, it was really, really fun. Meaningful Money Handbook. Yep, that is a very good book. So definitely make sure you check it. Jack's Financial. I didn't even know you were dropping by. In fact, I was actually on the panel with Jack's Financial. So yeah, good to see that you're here. I still remember doing this too. It's a great eye opener. I think that's probably about the debt. So yeah. Oh no, the net worth statement probably is definitely a good eye opener. Integrated Purgatory says, I remember your first few videos. It's so nice to see you develop. Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, 4 years may seem like a long time, but I have learned so much. And to be honest, I'm really thankful for those years, because it's took me to where I am today. Like, I was able to be in a position where, I was able to just quit my job for 6 months and literally still have my expenses paid for, plus have savings and investments, and still be investing during that time, just purely because of what I then decided to do, after October 2018. So, even with the journey towards financial independence, even though it may seem long, there are still certain things you can do just being on the journey and just making the decision to start working towards it. Like, a big reason, probably the biggest reason why I started to pay off my debt was because I then wanted to become financially independent. So pretty much paying off the debt was the journey, was part of the journey. And then it was like saving and then starting to invest and things like that. Hi, Budget with Jenny. Hope you're well. Hi, Jomo. Oh, guys, there's all these comments I just didn't realize. Hi, Matthew from New York City. Oh, hi. Thank you. I'm actually going to New York. I'm going to New York. That is part of our holiday plan. So I'm very excited for that. I'm thinking to do, if you guys would like, I've never done like a travel vlog, but if you guys would like that, let me know. If you would like if you would like a travel vlog, let me know. Please do let me know. Do you have a target for when you want to become financially independent? So yes, I have a very ambitious target of becoming financially independent by 35. I am 27 now, so that gives me 8 years, exactly 8 years, to become financially independent. Obviously, if it takes a bit longer, that is fine. It's more so going to be based on, it may not be like the exact lifestyle, but pretty much just our expenses in terms of how much our essential bills come to. So that is pretty much my target. But yeah, within 8 years, that is the plan. Things may change, especially if we start a family. And I know kids are very expensive. Childcare is so expensive these days. But yeah, that is hopefully the goal at the moment. So we will see. Hola, Miss Musica. Thanks for sharing your insights. Another great book and podcast is Ramit Seffi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I still need to read that book. I've definitely heard good things about it. So yeah, that is definitely something that I need to have a look at. What would your advice be regarding how to pay off your overdraft? So I think it's obviously going to depend. It's going to depend on your personal circumstances, and it will depend on maybe the interest as well. So for me, I knew that there was going to be a certain point when I had to pay off my overdraft because the interest was ridiculous. I think they'd be charging me like £30 a month or something. It was ridiculous. So I knew that I would have to pay off my overdraft very soon to try and avoid all of those extra, those extra payments. But again, it's going to depend on your circumstances. How much spare money do you have? Do you have any other debt? Is the interest high? Like if you've got credit card debt, for example, it's gonna really depend. So yeah, a travel vlog with how you budgeted for the vacation would be great. Yes, I did include some of it in my budget update videos if you had seen it, but yeah, I'm thinking of doing a travel vlog. My husband was the one that encouraged me to do that, weirdly enough, but I think that's just because he secretly likes to be on camera. But yeah, any other questions, guys? Because I'm probably gonna go for dinner soon. But any other questions? Any thoughts? Anything like that? I'm so sorry that I just didn't see your comments, guys. I was thinking that I was talking to myself. Like I was thinking I'm just a loner, just talking to myself, and no one wants to talk to me. But yeah, it's really nice to know. Yeah, that you are all here to join me. If there are no questions, I think I'm going to leave it there. So thank you guys so much for joining me. As I mentioned, I am thinking of doing 2 videos a week, probably for mid-October. So do watch out for that. Hopefully the algorithm will then help me and allow me to, push out my videos even further. But yeah, if you've got any other questions, make sure you do follow me on Instagram as well. That's usually where I am active during the other days of the week. And again, obviously, if you need one-to-one coaching, I can help you with that as well in terms of your finances. But thank you guys so much. What's a Super Saver Plus? I'm not sure what a Super Saver Plus is, actually. I don't think I've heard of that. I'm not sure. Matt says, "Oh, traveling to the UK in January. Oh, have fun. If you're coming to London, make sure you check out all the amazing things we have." But I'm not sure what a Super Saver Plus is, so you might have to be a bit more like, where did that come from? Where's that come from? Because I've never heard of it. But yeah, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you soon. I will see you next month as well for our live, so we can catch up and see how everyone's doing. All right, thank you guys. Bye.